that we're going to end the year on a high note. All right, today we'll be looking at certain issues about our political development, specifically on the security of our elections. We're looking at violence and the Nigerian elections. Of course, I have information that the Inspector General of Police summoned some persons to discuss with them. But of course, I'll just look at this. Political violence in any form, shape, or manifestation is both an offense under the Electoral Act and a crime under extant criminal laws of the country. Beyond its impact on the political process, it also has a major consequence on our national security. Consequently, the Nigeria Police Force and all other national security agencies, in fulfillment of their statutory obligations to the nation, remain duty-bound to initiate enforcement actions that will restore order within political and national security systems. And this quote is credited to the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, while addressing leaders of the 18 Nigerian political parties in Abuja on November 17th, 2022. It's days to the 2023 general elections, which is the 7th in this Fourth Republic, which began in 1999. Unfortunately, there are ominous signs that the political class are, for the umpteenth time, bent on using the Machiavellian principle of the end justifies the means in achieving electoral victory. We are in the campaign season meant to take place for 150 days. However, hardly had the exercise commenced on September 28, when political gladiators started to show their color by sponsoring political violence. This got the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, and the Independent National Electoral Commission worried that both parties had to summon the leaders of the 18 political parties contesting election last Thursday to warn them and sue for peace. According to Baba, drawing from the experiences of the past electoral violence, both in the process leading to an election as well as the fallout of elections, has always constituted the most dangerous threat to our democracy. Political violence manifests in three forms. First is violence that is targeted at the personnel and INEC assets, as recently witnessed in Ogun and Osun states. The second form of political violence manifests in the form of inter-party violence, and violence which often becomes particularly pronounced during campaigns, elections, and post-election phases. It is on record that not less than 52 cases of such politically motivated intra- and inter-party violence have been recorded across 22 states since the official commencement of campaigns for the 2023 elections on September 28, 2022. The last form of political violence relates to the conduct of some state governors who manifest traits of political intolerance, which often inflame political tension. The Super Corp expatiated further that he had been receiving reports of some state governors encouraging political thugs and sub-national security outfits under their control to disrupt seamless and statutorily guaranteed campaign activities of parties or candidates with whom they hold opposing political views. In so doing, they deploy their powers and influences to either prevent the mounting of campaign billboards or pull them down, while also denying political opponents of spaces to undertake their campaigns or peaceful political congregations in contravention of the provisions of the Electoral Act 2022. Now, today on the program, we take a further look at this issue of political violence, especially as it is concerned the 2023 general elections, x-raying the different forms in which this violence manifests, as well as the implications of such violence going into the polls, especially as we are seeing more attacks, particularly on INEC and its facilities. For instance, the recent attacks on INEC offices in Ebonyi State. How would all these affect the conduct and credibility of the 2023 elections? Of course, right now, I'm being joined by from my own perspective, very patriotic Nigerian. I know he has so many titles. I know he has so many caps. He's wearing one now. He's my very good friend, and he's a patriotic Nigerian, at least from as far as I know. And I know he's always wanting to contribute to ensure that our country moves forward. I'm being joined by a political analyst, Jide Ojo. Jide, I want to thank you so much for carving out time to be with us here today.
It's a pleasure, Ernest. Good afternoon, Abuja. Good afternoon, Nigeria. And wish you the best of the new week.
Okay, thank you so much.
And compliments of the Yuletide.
Okay, I can see.
We are counting down to Christmas.
Okay, I see you. Is that why you are in this get-up, or you have something you don't want to tell me about?
Yeah, I'm coming from Anowambe, one of my friends. Actually, two of my friends are celebrating their elevation to Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Okay. Our mutual friend, Sam Kagbo, and then there is Eso Sulaiman of INEC. Who is also celebrating not too far away from here. So I decided to honor at least one out of the two. Maybe I will make the second one after leaving.
To honor that one first.
Yes.
I know you are taking me to the other one later.
Well, we'll see how that goes.
All right. Yeah. All right, Julie. We're talking about political violence and its manifestation in our political life. What is your general take on political violence? In which way?
Political violence has become the new normal in politics, and maybe it's an anomaly to say it's a new normal, because history tells us that Nigeria has witnessed plethora of political violence right from the First Republic. In fact, the demise of the First Republic and Second Republic was not unconnected with political violence.
Okay.
You possibly have heard, Ernest, about Operation Wete in Southwest. That was as a result of a Western regional crisis of 1964-65 general elections, where there was high level of political intolerance, and people decided to resort to self-help. Oppositions were hunted out of town, frame up, trump up charges, people were disappearing, people were assassinated, and so many others. And when you read the reason why the military took over on January 15, 1966, that was part of the reason cited. Then the Second Republic, you also remember what happened with Omobori Owo and Najas in old Ondo State. Even in Oyo State then, as a young lad growing up, we witnessed a lot of this, tension during the political period, vandalization of billboards, arson, and all manner of political intolerance were on display. And one will have thought that 23 years into this Fourth Republic, we will have less of this, or that it will have disappeared from our political lexicon. Unfortunately, that has not happened. Instead, you now have an exacerbated incidences of political violence. And for these reasons, a lot of concerns are being raised. Recall that in 2011, post-election blues, Nigeria lost over 800 souls to post-election violence after the announcement of Goodluck Jonathan as the winner of the 2011 presidential election. 10 of them were youth corps members serving in Bauchi State. 13 northern states were affected, and according to Human Rights Watch, we lost over 800 lives. But even before the post-election blues, the lead up to that 2011 elections in Akwa Ibom and several other states, there were a lot of violence. I recall that in Akwa Ibom State, a lot of vehicles were burnt, a lot of properties were burnt. In that election, where I think Akpan Uduede was a governorship candidate or aspirant, and Godswill Akpabio was then the governor of. So there were a lot of tension, and when you now saw what is playing out in 2023, you ask yourself, should we not have outgrown this? culture of violence.
Jide, I wanted to ask you that. Where are we? Are the politicians not maturing? Are we not, our politics is not growing?
The issue, let's forget first, second republic, even the aborted third republic. Let's look at 1999 to date. The forthcoming election is our 7th general elections. Let INEC come out with the list of those who have been successfully prosecuted for orchestrating violence in 1999, in 2003.
Is that the job of INEC to have the list?
Yes, because INEC.
The police,
no, wait. INEC, the police makes arrest. INEC prosecutes. That's the trend.
Oh, is that the start?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
For electoral offenses?
Yes, for electoral offenses.
Okay.
INEC makes, although it depends on when the offense was committed.
Okay.
Because as the IGP said, that the law is on the side of the security agencies to make arrest and prosecute. And if you look at the press statement issued by INEC yesterday by Festus Okoye, he said like 2 people have been prosecuted in Sokoto and one other state for having multiple permanent voters card. But when it comes to issues of violence, procedurally, it is the job of the police to make arrest and possibly prosecute. Because even though INEC has the power to prosecute, it is shared with the police authorities and the state. Because the state may decide to or not to prosecute. We have had situations in the past where the state filed nolle prosecute to say that they are no longer interested in prosecuting. But what I'm saying is that it is the culture of impunity over the decades, 23 years down the line, that has encouraged more political gladiators and desperados to continue to use these same underhand tactics to win elections. Now, you reeled out what the IGP said, but in an article I did last week in my column in The Punch, I actually calibrated violence into 3. Conflict experts will tell you that there are 1, physical violence, 2, psychological violence, 3, structural violence. Now, much of what was described by the IGP were physical violence, as in killing, maiming, political assassination, attempted assassination on politically exposed persons, and destruction of billboards and all whatnots. Those are physical violence,
okay.
which he mentioned that they have tracked 52 of that across 22 states. That is mind-boggling, mark you. We still have over 90 days to election.
This is just a few days after.
This was this was barely a month after the signing of peace accord by these same political chairmen of political parties and their candidates. So you ask yourself, of what use is this peace accord if we are still recording this level of political assassination, this level of arson, this level of physical assault? Then there is psychological violence. In fact, that one, people are not tracking it because it's numerous. And when you talk of psychological violence, it's like in football. You understand? Somebody wants to play penalty and you go taunting him to distract his attention.
From behind the goal.
From behind.
Yeah.
So you miss this penalty.
You're making faces at him.
You make a face, or you call him names, or you distract his attention. That is psychological. You didn't touch him. There could not be allegation of assault and battery against you. But when you use social media to cyberbully an opponent, that's psychological violence.
Okay.
When you use name calling, when you use hate speech, when you use mudslinging, when you use libelous messages, when you use all manner of false allegations, or what people call I think there is another name for it, character assassination. Those are psychological violence. Imagine every speech of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, opposition goes to town. They will spot a slip. They will see where he didn't dress well. they will see the spot where he sweated, or as they want to say, he.
Okay. They are not looking at his capacity
they're not looking,
to be a president.
Look at what happened with Shetima. The day he went to represent Asiwaju at NBA conference in September, and people made a mountain of his dress, the way he dressed. Oh, he wore canvas on his suit. His tie was inappropriately.
Sorry, you just give me an opportunity to answer to that. People wear sneakers on suit.
I know, but
the Nigerian youth say it's not done.
Exactly.
But people can dress like that, actually.
They use that to
it was his choice.
They say, you want to show the coat. Look at the way he sat. He's you're unbefitting. And then you see situation where a candidate came and they gave him a rousing welcome. Others came and they just
boost them even.
So that's psychological violence.
Okay.
You get. So when you engage in hate speech, when you engage in cyberbullying, when you engage in name calling, when you engage in all manner of disinformation and misinformation about a candidate or his party, that is psychological violence. Then the third one, Ernest, is what is called structural violence. That one is where you use the instrumentality of the state or state agencies or even legal power at your disposal to deal with opposition. Look at the executive orders some state governors have signed. Banning pasting of billboard or mounting of billboard or pasting of flyers. Some they asked them to come and pay 10 million. There was a case in Kaduna where purportedly the minister withdrew the approval to use the national stadium in Kaduna for PDP to campaign, and that's after they have paid the
necessary charges,
and then you withdraw it. Then on the money of the program, you now say you restore when they have already secured the alternate venue. Or there's so many other, apart from executive orders, situations where you use all manner of rules to deal with opposition. For instance, if this were to be a publicly owned media, there may be a call from the authorities not to accept any jingles or advertorials from the opposition. And you see that a lot in many
ask
states.
us, why do we have such a guest on our show?
Oh, exactly. Why did you invite that person? That's structural violence. You get. So when somebody says, I want to pay for jingles, I want to pay for advert, and you say, this is government to do, my oga at the top must not hear that, your advert is being heard or is being heard on our station. That's structural violence. So there are these manifestations, the ones that are being tracked largely are just the physical violence. But what is at play in many states is beyond. There was a case where a traditional ruler of a community in one southeast state told the opposition party that they cannot even hold meeting in his community. They cannot hold meeting because the state government was going to deal with him. Maybe they have been threatening that they would dethrone him if he allows opposition to come and hold meetings. That time campaign has not even started. It was in, I think, Abia State, one community in Abia State where a land happened. So these are structural violence, that is also at play. And all of these three have been on the increase as the election day comes by. So this is not something that should be tolerated in our politics. But I must also hasten to say that political violence is not alien to Africa.
Okay.
It is across the African continent, even in Europe and America. What you see abroad is name calling. Remember all the allegations against Donald Trump, and all manner of things, and throwing jibes at one another and all of that. That also happened abroad, and calling themselves all manner of names. But in Africa, you see physical violence, destruction of people's billboard, not allowing people access to public utilities,
spaces,
public spaces, coming up with all manner of regulations and guidelines
to ensure that undercuts the opponent.
Exactly.
Okay.
Those are the things that are manifesting in our politics.
Now, Jide, we're looking at the politicians, and I know we'll go back to that. But first, I want us to just take a sideways glance at the security agencies. We read here about the Inspector General of Police inviting the 18 political parties to admonish, to threaten, to beg, or, so to speak, whatever. Jide, what does that mean? Is the Inspector General of Police a mediator? Is he not supposed to, if any of these things manifest, is it not his job and his men to arrest? If they arrest, prosecute, and succeed with one person, everybody will queue up. Why is he using a mediatory system when these things are there for us to see? Are they incapable of protecting our electoral process? Is that what it means?
I wish I were the police public relation officer. Maybe you need to invite him.
I guess so, but from your own perspective, as somebody knowledgeable.
Because I'm also very surprised that the IGP wasn't telling us about the number of arrests made at that event. It was just appealing to them to play by the rules and threatening that...
The police is always saying you will feel the full wrath of the law. Full wrath of the law.
As at that time,
people have
in those 52 cases, there should have been hundreds of arrests made. Although he did recall in that press briefing after that meeting, he did finger that some state governors are actually behind the sponsorship of this violence in their states. And as we know, governors have immunity. You can't go arrest them. But what about the
foot soldiers?
Yes, you could have arrested their foot soldiers or, some of the other people involved who are not having immunity. They should have been arrested, rounded up, and prosecuted. It's very easy for INEC to come out and say 2 people have been nabbed and prosecuted. One in Sokoto was sent to a year jail for being in possession of multiple PVCs, that's the voter's card. But what about those who have actually destroyed properties of people? People who have, been engaging in cyberbullying of political opponents and all of that. I think the police should have also made some arrests in this regard. So I agree with you. Police needs to have done more. Or since that incident happened, for instance, should police not have investigated and arrested people who have been touching INEC offices all around? Are they so helpless? The one that happened recently in Ogun State, in Abeokuta, I think Abeokuta South, the one that happened in Osun, the one that just happened yesterday in Izi, local government area of Mboyi State.
Okay.
Why has there been no arrest made of perpetrators of this? So I think the police need to, because you don't expect INEC to be the one to now be conducting investigation to arrest people who have been touching their offices. And many of these were done last year, ahead of the November 6, 2021 governorship election in Anambra, where a number of INEC local government offices in the 5 southeast states were raised with property in billions of naira destroyed. Just yesterday, look at the itemized properties that were destroyed. Apart from the physical structure, permanent voters' cards were destroyed. About 14 generators set, power generating set, cubicles, voters,
beavers,
ballot boxes, and all of that. Wow. No, beavers was not mentioned. Okay. So all of these that were raised, somebody did it, and unfortunately, the one in Izi was not done under the cover of darkness. This was around 10 a.m. that was done. So somebody somewhere must have seen, cited those who did this, and they could do nothing. And the whole thing was raised. It's so unfortunate.
Okay, Jide, you're hearing the voice of Jide Ojo, a patriotic political analyst here in our studio this afternoon to look at the issues of electoral violence in the lead-up to the 2023 general elections. It's politics now. My name is Ernest. I'll be finding out from Jide because people have said, he said just now, we were making reference to the cyber bullying of the presidential candidate of the APC. We've also heard from him using some form of language against others. And people have said that both in the states and at the federal level, that it is the ruling party that precipitates violence, and that is why it is difficult to deal with, because if the leader is already being violent, you cannot go and arrest the other people when they respond. You'll be giving us an answer to that when we just come back from this short break. Stay with us.
This is our journey. We've had our finest moments and our darkest hours. Yet we pull ourselves back from the brick every time. We are a resilient people. We are Nigeria. And when we talk, we share our views on Talk Radio 93.7, Citizen FM. A people united will never be defeated.
All right, it's politics now here on 93 Citizen FM 93.7. I have my guest here in the studio, Jide Ojo, a political analyst, and we're looking at the issue of electoral violence that has been a part, almost becoming a natural phenomenon in our elections every season. And we're looking at what can we do, what is going on, who is responsible for it. Jide, before we went on break, I was saying that there's been accusations that actually that is the ruling party most often than not that distorts. First, stopping people from using facilities, especially in a state. They say don't advertise or speak. You are not interviewed on the state-owned television or radio station. Your billboards are defaced and all of that. And so when the opposing parties react, it becomes difficult for the police to take action, even at the federal level. We talked about how the APC candidates have been bullied via the cyberspace. But of course, we hear Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu also using some kind of language when he's campaigning against his political opponent.
Exactly.
So I don't know if the people say that if the ruling party obeys the law, then it becomes very easy for those who are the security agents to clamp down on us. So how do we get it that let those who are in power know how to obey the law and ensure that the law is supreme? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge that every one of the political parties we have in Nigeria abuse their powers of incumbency, whether at the federal, state, or even local government level. People abuse their powers. And all the dominant parties who are in control of levels of power at one state or the other are guilty of this.
Okay.
Recall that some people have even come out with a statement, a video of footage of former Labour Party chairman who accused Peter Obi as the governor of Anambra State, denying Senator Ifeanyi Ubah opportunity to campaign, even when he was governor under the All Progressive Grand Alliance. And you see this also in APC states, you see this in PDP states. So none of the political parties is immune to committing this issue of political violence, whether psychological, structural, or physical. Okay. And that is why there is a lot of abuse of state instrument of coercion, the police and DSS and others, because given the overwhelming control of this instrument of coercion, they tend to behold to political office holders. So you cannot go ahead and arrest a governor who has obviously committed an infraction.
Jide, let me just stop you. Sorry for me to interrupt you, but quickly, is it possible for us to have a professional police, a professional security agencies who have security of tenure so that they can do their job without fear of the president, the IG, and the state commissioners do their job without fear of the commissioner of police?
That is the ideal, Ernest. It's an ideal that you're talking about, but the situation right now is far from ideal.
But people say it's because of the individual.
Look at the scenario that is playing out in some states where there are state vigilante or militia under the cover of fighting insecurity that are being misused by the state governors. And if you can misuse the federal forces, how there will you not? The one that you are now paying their salaries. None of the governor could say he's paying salary of police or DSS or the other or civil defense. But because they provide them with logistics, you know, they tend to have some measure of control, and so much. And because these people actually have immunity, so you cannot, even where you finger them as being involved in the committing electoral violence, you can only shout and hoping that they will listen. But I think the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security needs to take this more seriously. Prevention is better and cheaper than cure. For INEC offices that are being set ablaze, this has to be nipped in the bud. INEC is not a player, it's just an umpire. If you decide to attack the umpire, what is your aim? And I'm worried that the way things are, if it's not abating, if this political violence is not abating, we may be tacitly inviting the military to take over.
God forbid.
God forbid, but why would anybody in his right senses be setting INEC offices at least? Did you know that INEC, initially the budget of INEC was 305 billion for the conduct of 2023 general elections, which they got in the 2022 appropriation law. Now INEC has gone back to request for additional 50 billion because of unexpected expenses. For instance, the by-elections it needed to conduct, and of course the devaluation of the naira and all of that. And all these items that are being raised, that are being destroyed across the states, are not going to be replaced with the resources of the INEC chairman or his commissioners or staff. It's going to be the federal government that will still fund the renovation of these burnt offices, that will still fund the replacement of all the items that have been destroyed. So those political desperados who are involved in attacking INEC offices should know that it's like cutting your nose to spite your face. You are not gaining any advantage by doing this. Rather, it's the state that will replace those items. And these are funds that should be put to better use rather than just using it to replace all the lost items in Ifano. These are not natural causes. If it were to be natural disaster, we would have known. And mark you, what many people have not advanced their minds to is that a lot of INEC offices also got drenched in flood in the month of September, October. And these properties were equally destroyed. But that's a natural disaster, you know, like in Bayelsa where the entire state was submerged. You don't expect that INEC offices will not also be equally affected, and several other states where we have flooding. So INEC has already suffered gargantuan loss as a result of flood. Now you are setting the offices ablaze. these are going to be items lost will be replaced, or the renovation of the offices will have to be funded by federal government.
Wow.
That these are resources that could be put to better use. And let me say, the article that I wrote last week in my column in The Punch, I was alluding to the implications of all of this violence. The implication is very grave, my brother. It's very grave to the extent that in Anambra, because of political violence ahead of November 6, 2021 election, they do know the voter turnout, 10.24%.
And that's
10.24% of the votes brought Soludo into government house of Anambra. And the situation might be, we have seen a federal house of reps election in Lagos where only 9% of the voters came out to vote.
With 91% absent.
91 absent.
Wow.
So now, if this trend continues, you are likely going to have voter apathy in 2023.
Jide, now what is the solution? But before you give me that answer, I just want to quickly, as we begin to wind down now, to invite our listener, if we can take one or two calls, maybe not too much, because we have so much to chew, but it's important that we just get them involved a little. You can reach us here on 0903 222 9797 0903 222-9797. We are looking at political violence in our polity. Better still, there's another number. You can call 0818-2222-205. 0818-2222-205. Yes, Jide, what is the solution? What do we do? How do we curb this? The police seem handicapped, DSS. So we are just here, we are looking. Violence every time we're having elections. What do Nigerians do? How do we solve this problem?
I think we need to start seeing INEC officers as a national asset that needs to be protected.
How do we protect it?
Yes, by deploying the instrument of coercion. We could have the Nigerian police doing joint operation with the civil defense, providing additional security to those INEC offices, 774 of them, across the length and breadth of Nigeria. That could be a way to start. Then the traditional institutions needs to also be approached to provide additional vigilante to help secure INEC offices. INEC itself have to move those not necessarily sensitive material, but those expensive, like all this voter card. If it comes down to having to move this voters card out of those local government offices, so that many people now who are expecting that they are going to be collecting their PVCs in the next few days, if these PVCs have already been raised, it will take additional resources for INEC to replace them. And all the ballot boxes, all the generating sets, cubicles and all of that, it's a lot of money to provide. But beyond that, we should not just focus on INEC. We also need to look at human lives. Additional protection needs to be given politically exposed persons. Recall what happened to Senator Ifeanyi recently when he was going to his hometown, and 7 of his aides, including police orderlies, were mauled, were killed in cold blood. Although as at that time the campaigns haven't started, but that tells you that all politically exposed persons need to really provide additional security.
That reminds me, in some other places where we are trying to do our elections like them, the minute you become a presidential candidate, you are give our 18th presidential candidate, because you're a potential president. Do they have necessary security, the 18 presidential candidates?
I should think that the state will provide them with those police protection, but it may not be enough, given the fact that these people are prime target of the how do I call them? Non government. Just imagine, God forbid, if any of those frontline candidates were to be picked up by the non-government, how much will be demanded for their release. So the state needs to actually provide them extra security cover. But this is why some candidates resort to hiring private security firm for their security. And of course, one of the most fast-selling vehicles in Nigerians today are the treated cars, or what they call armored vehicles, bulletproof vehicles. Because if you are a politician of note, you are a person of interest to your enemies.
But what about those who don't have too much money? The kind of candidates who are hoping that they are not money bags. They've been complaining against money bags over time, not to take over and buy over our polity.
Something happened in Anambra which is very, very disheartening. The candidate of Labour Party in the November 6, 2021 governorship election in Anambra, I think his name was is Agbasim Malu or something. The guy went to campaign. After the campaign, he got missing. For over 1 year now, the guy has not been found.
Are you kidding, Jide?
And this is something you can do a Google check on. The guy was a banker in Lagos, resigned his banking job because his uncle persuaded him to come and contest for election in Anambra. And the Labour Party gave him a platform. From what I learned, this guy, after a rally one day, got missing, and for over 1 year.
And the system is here to tell us anything
exactly.
about that.
So I read recently that, the press stay feeding on it and say over 1 year after he was missing, the family is still asking questions. They've not seen his corpse, and nobody has been able to give comprehensive explanation as to the whereabouts of that guy. So the election have been won and lost in Anambra, but that guy still remains missing.
Wow.
So it tells you how dangerous it is to venture into politics in 2023, politics of 2023 elections. And we need to also appeal, beyond the police and the security agencies doing their level best under interagency consultative committee on election security. We also need to sound the imperative of foot soldiers not to allow themselves to be used to foment trouble.
That is difficult. I think we need the heads not to think about violence in the first place. There is so much poverty, and the chances of people being manipulated and all of that are being induced and so on is very, very high. So it becomes very difficult for us to be appealing to the people down there at the bottom. So we look at
it's a multi-pronged approach. You cannot say that, the leaders have signed on to peace accord. Why do we still have this high level of violence?
But I've always said that in all these places we say we borrow democracy from, they don't sign peace accords now. They just have a culture of having respect for each other, and it just runs. Before I respond, though, I think possibly something is wrong with our telephone lines this afternoon, but please just keep making the effort. 0903 222 9797. 0903-222-9797. The other number, 0818-2222-205. 0818-2222-205. I have Jide Ujo joining me in this studio on politics now to look at the issue of electoral violence. And he has described 3 steps of electoral violence, and we are experiencing all of them. Cyberbullying, all kinds of things going on. INEC offices being razed to the ground with equipment worth millions, billions of naira in some cases. And of course, political opponents attacking each other and those in power. So Jide, it boils down to the fact that, like, I keep using this example of President Obama saying many years ago when he was still president of America, that the president must be the first to obey the law. That if the president obeys the law, nobody else has any reason to disobey. So we have a situation here where we have the people in power, or governors and people in senior places, disobeying the law. Let's quickly take, I think somebody has gotten through. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Could we meet you and where you're calling from?
Yeah, my name is Michael. I'm calling from Nasarawa.
You're calling from where?
Nasarawa.
Okay, Michael. Okay, good afternoon. Thanks, please. Can we get your comments, please?
Exactly. Well, electoral violence, I think the front runner, as in those who are contesting, they should be able to mind the utterances. Because the utterances are one of those things that ignited those who are supporters, carry out the violence. And they should be able to talk to those who are their supporters, They should be able to, when many times, it depends on the way we see this politics of a state, you understand? I think we need to be educated in terms of the way we support those who want them to. We don't need to use the violence to be able to get whatever we want to achieve, But in talking about the issue of protecting the INEC system,
Okay.
you see, protecting the INEC facility is also important, just like protecting Mr. President, Asogila. It is very difficult for you to break in there. So if it is very difficult for anybody to break in Aso Rock and get away with it, we should also make it like that in protecting the INEC facility. And again, if the INEC printed the PVC, what are they keeping it for? Are they guiding it? Why, if you have printed this in...
But Mike, it is the people. The law says you should go and pick it up. It's not INEC to be looking for you. You must go to their office to pick it up. That is what the law says.
Yes, the law says so. But if he did not, make it known to the people that this thing is ready, you say, Lord, okay, what we're saying is that there should be a lot of publicity.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, Mike. I understand you, Mike. I want to thank you. Yes, you say okay. The INEC should put up some publicity to let the people know that this thing is ready. Jide, people say election violence and the way we talk to each other is a reflection also of the general disrespect we have for each other within the society. When we shout at each other, we take offense easily, we just generally there's unruly behavior everywhere, which you refer to as impunity. Do you think there's a correlation between that?
There is, definitely there is a correlation between people have short fuses now because of the tension they daily go through. No lights, no water, the anger is brimming, people just want to vent their anger on whoever and whatever they perceive as being the harbinger of their sufferings. And that in itself has not really helped in curtailing issue of, hate speeches and fake news and disinformation and misinformation and cyberbullying. But I think we just need to continue to work at it.
Okay.
People need to be arrested and investigated and prosecuted. When we have sizable number of people who have gone to jail because they engage in electoral violence, then you start seeing a sharp drop in the number of people who wants to engage. But situations where the government of the day provides cover for their hirelings and their foot soldiers to do this and get away. Luckily, we have not seen much of political assassination. Okay. As we saw,
we hope we don't get there.
We hope we won't get there where people will eliminate themselves because of politics. But even it's bad enough that we have recorded 52 cases of physical violence officially, and it's definitely more than that. But those are the ones that are documented from the police authority.
Okay, Jide, I want to thank you so much. You heard the voice of Jide Ojo joining me this afternoon to look at the issue of electoral violence in our polity in the lead up to the 2023 elections. Okay, let's temper down the words we are using, and if the police can make examples of a few persons, they don't need to be mediating and begging people not to be violent. Arrest them, prosecute them, announce it, let people hear that somebody is in jail for doing one thing or the other, and you see that people will queue up on the line. Jide, I want to thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Thank you so much. All right, I want to thank everyone, Didi, Fred, Kunle, and so many others operating behind the scenes to ensure that we'll reach you this afternoon. And of course, Mike, who called us from Nasarawa this afternoon. My name is Ernest. We'll be seeing you tomorrow with another edition of the program Politics Now. Do have yourself a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.